The diamond necklace was supposed to be worth $12 million. That was what the bride screamed first. Not that it belonged to her mother. Not that it had been blessed in some old cathedral in Sicily. Not that the necklace had been locked in a private safe inside the bridal suite, guarded by two men with earpieces and dead eyes. No. Vivienne Rousseau stood barefoot in the middle of the grand hallway on deck 11, wrapped in a silk white robe. Her dark hair pinned in polished waves. Her lips trembling with a performance so perfect that everyone around her forgot to question it. $12 million, she cried, pointing one manicured finger straight at Lena Carter. And she was the last person in my suite. The hallway went silent in that expensive way only rich places could manage. Not peaceful, controlled. Like even the air knew not to move unless someone powerful allowed it. Lena stood beside her cleaning cart with a stack of fresh towels in her arms. Her Navy Maid uniform was clean but faded at the seams. Her apron pulled a little too tight around her waist. The way uniforms always did when they were ordered by people who thought every woman hired to clean should be shaped like a hanger. She could feel every eye on her. The bridesmaids. The security men. The old politicians sipping champagne outside the private lounge. The billionaires pretending not to stare. And the camera phones. Those were the worst. Vivienne's closest friend. A thin blonde woman with diamonds in both ears and cruelty resting naturally in her smile. Lifted her phone and started recording. Look at her face. The blonde whispered loudly. She knows. Lena's throat tightened. I didn't take anything, she said. Her voice came out steady. But inside, humiliation was already climbing up her ribs. Vivienne laughed once. Soft and sharp. You expect us to believe that, she said. A maid making what? $15 an hour, walking into my suite, seeing diamonds sitting there. And suddenly, having morals. A few women laughed. Lena looked down at the towels in her arms. She had cleaned rooms after seasick children, drunk millionaires, honeymooners who left cash on the dresser like it was trash, and men who never looked at her face when they asked for extra sheets. She had learned to swallow insults before they became visible. She had learned that if you looked hurt, certain people took it as permission to go deeper. But this was different. This was public, and Vivienne knew it. Search her, one of the bridesmaids said. Lena's head snapped up. No. The blonde smiled wider. No. I said no. Lena held the towels closer to her chest. You can call ship security. You can check the cameras. You can contact my supervisor, but none of you are putting your hands on me. For 1 second, something flickered behind Vivienne's eyes. Not fear, annoyance. As if Lena had stepped out of the role assigned to her. Then Vivienne moved fast. She grabbed the side of Lena's cleaning cart and shoved it with both hands. The cart tipped. Glass bottles, folded linens, cleaning spray, small soaps, and a metal bucket crashed across the gold-patterned carpet. The sound echoed down the hallway like a gunshot dressed in luxury. Lena flinched. The bridesmaids laughed. Pick it up, Vivienne said. Lena stood frozen. Pick it up. Lena looked around for help. No one moved. Not the security men. Not the ship staff pretending to study the walls. Not the guests who suddenly found their champagne fascinating. So Lena crouched. Her knees pressed into the carpet. Her cheeks burned. Her hands moved through the mess, collecting towels first because broken glass had scattered near the spilled bottles. The blonde kept filming. Careful, she said, laughing. Wouldn't want her stealing the soap too. Lena's fingers curled around a hand towel, something hard pressed against her palm from inside her apron pocket. She froze. Her apron pocket was supposed to hold only her room card. A pencil. And a small notepad. And sometimes wrapped crackers she saved for long shifts. Slowly, Lena reached inside. Her fingers closed around cold metal. She pulled out a gold cabin key. Not a plastic key card. A real key. Old-fashioned. Heavy. Polished. A black enamel crest set into the bow. A serpent wrapped around a crown. The air changed. The laughter stopped. Lena stared at the key. Confused. "I've never seen this before," she whispered. Vivian's face went pale so quickly, Lena noticed it even through her own panic. Then Vivian lunged. She snatched the key from Lena's hand and lifted it high for everyone to see. "Oh my God," she breathed. "This is Matteo's." The hallway died. Even the ocean seemed to go quiet beyond the walls. Lena stood, but her knees felt weak. "That was not in my pocket before." Vivian turned toward the cameras, tears shining perfectly in her eyes. "She stole my necklace," she said, "and she was trying to sneak into my fiancé's private cabin." "No," Lena said, shaking her head. "No, that's not true." Vivian stepped closer. Her perfume was expensive. Floral. Suffocating. "You should have stayed invisible," she whispered. Then the elevator chimed. "On, says." Softly. Every head turned. The doors opened. Matteo Romano stepped out. He wore a black suit without a tie. The collar of his white shirt opened just enough to show ink curling along his collarbone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and still in a way that made movement around him look nervous. Two men stepped out behind him, both dressed in dark suits, both watching the hallway as if deciding who would be allowed to keep breathing. Matteo's eyes moved over the scene. The spilled cart, the broken glass, the phones, the bride in her silk robe, and then Lena, still half kneeling among towels and shattered bottles. One hand pressed against the carpet, her cheeks flushed with humiliation. She refused to let become tears. His expression did not change, but something in the hallway tightened. Vivian clutched the key in her fist. "Matteo," she said, suddenly soft. "Thank God you're here." He did not look at her. His gaze remained on Lena. Then he spoke, calm and low. "Why is she on the floor?" No one answered. The blonde bridesmaid slowly lowered her phone. Matteo turned his head slightly. "I asked a question." Vivian swallowed. "She stole my necklace." Matteo's eyes finally shifted to his bride. "Did she?" "Yes." Vivian lifted the key, and this was in her apron. "Your private cabin key." One of Matteo's men moved half a step forward. The other went completely still. Matteo looked at the gold key. For the first time, something crossed his face. Not shock, recognition. "Danger." He held out his hand. Vivian hesitated. It was small, almost nothing. But Lena saw it. Matteo saw it too. "Give it to me," he said. Vivian placed the key in his palm. Matteo closed his fingers around it, then looked back at Lena. "What is your name?" Lena forced herself to stand. Her hands shook, so she hid them behind her back. "Lena Carter." "Did you put this key in your pocket?" "No." "Did you steal the necklace?" And "No." "Did you enter my cabin?" "No." "Do you understand what happens to people who lie to me?" The hallway seemed to hold its breath. Lena lifted her chin, even though fear moved coldly through her stomach. "I understand what happens to people like me when people like her need someone to blame." The words landed harder than she expected. A few guests looked away. Vivian's mouth tightened. Matteo studied Lena in silence. Most men looked at Lena and saw too much of her body and too little of her. Matteo looked at her as if he was reading every tremor she tried to hide. Every bruise life had left under her skin. Every stubborn piece of dignity she still had clenched in her fists. Then he turned to his men. Collect the phones. Vivian blinked. What? No one leaves this hallway with footage of her on the floor. The blonde bridesmaid recoiled as one of Matteo's men took her phone. You can't do that, she snapped. Matteo looked at her. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked. The blonde handed over the phone. Vivian stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. Matteo, she humiliated me. She stole from me. You're defending the maid. I'm not defending anyone, Matteo said. I'm asking why a key that has been locked in my safe since we left Seattle ended up in her apron. Vivian stopped breathing. There it was. The crack in her beautiful mask. Lena saw it. Matteo saw Lena see it. For one strange second, their eyes met over the wreckage of her cart. Then the ship gave a low groan as it cut through cold Pacific water, carrying all of them farther from shore, farther from witnesses, farther into a wedding that suddenly felt less like a celebration and more like a trap. Matteo slid the gold key into his own pocket. Miss Carter, he said. Lena stiffened. You're coming with me. Vivian's eyes widened. Absolutely not. Matteo did not even look at her. Now. Lena's heartbeat slammed once. Hard. I didn't do anything. I know what you said. That's not the same as believing me. His gaze sharpened. And for the first time, she saw the man beneath the expensive suit. Not the groom. Not the guest. Not the name whispered by half the staff with fear. The predator. No, he said quietly. It isn't. Then he turned and walked toward the private elevator. And somehow, surrounded by millionaires and monsters, Lena understood that staying behind might be more dangerous than following him. So she followed. The elevator doors closed on Vivian's pale face. Inside, no one spoke. Matteo stood inches away, one hand resting loosely at his side. His men faced the doors. Lena stood in the corner, aware of the warmth of his body, the faint scent of cedar, cold air, and expensive smoke clinging to his jacket. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored elevator wall. Round face, dark hair coming loose from its clip. Navy uniform, apron stained from the spill. Curves squeezed into fabric, never designed for comfort. Eyes too tired for her age, but still refusing to break. Matteo watched her reflection. You should be crying, he said. Lena looked at him through the mirror. Would that help? No. Then I'll save it. Something almost like approval touched his mouth. Almost. The elevator rose, past guest decks, past the private dining level, past the ballroom where orchids and white candles had been arranged for the rehearsal dinner. Finally, it stopped at deck 14. The doors opened into a corridor guarded by two men. Not ship security. Romano men. Lena knew because they did not look like people waiting for instructions. They looked like people who had already decided what they would do if anyone touched the man beside her. Matteo led her to a private suite at the end of the corridor. The room inside was larger than Lena's entire apartment in Tacoma. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over steel-gray water and low clouds. A black marble bar glowed under soft lights. A white sofa sat untouched. On a table rested a silver tray with untouched espresso and a folder sealed with red wax. Matteo shut the door. The click sounded final. Lena turned toward him. If you're going to accuse me, do it with cameras in the room. His brows lifted slightly. Afraid of being alone with me? Yes. The honesty slipped out before she could polish it. Matteo moved closer. Slowly. Not enough to touch her. Enough to change the air. Good, he said. Fear makes people careful. Lena hated that her pulse reacted to his voice. Hated the warmth that rose in her chest even while her body stayed braced for danger. I'm careful because I'm poor, she said. Fear is just included. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he took the gold key from his pocket and placed it on the table between them. Do you know what this opens? You said your cabin. I said it was my key. That's not the same thing. His eyes narrowed. Again, that faint flicker of approval. You listen. I clean rich people's rooms for a living. Listening is how I survive. Matteo looked down at the key. This opens cabin 7. Lena frowned. There is no cabin 7 on deck 14. No, there isn't. Cold moved along Lena's spine. Matteo continued. Cabin 7 is not listed on passenger maps. It is not in the ship directory. It is not accessible by guest elevators. Then why would your bride know about it? Silence. There. Lena felt the shift again. She was not supposed to ask that. Matteo stepped closer to the windows. Outside, the ocean rolled beneath a sky, the color of a bruise. 2 months ago, he said, someone inside my organization sold information to the Russo family. Lena stayed still. Tonight I was going to find out if Vivian was part of it. You're marrying someone you suspect of betraying you. He turned. I'm marrying her because if I don't, 3 families go to war from Seattle to New York. Lena stared at him. The words sounded insane. But his face made them feel practical. Like weather. Like taxes. Like death. And the necklace, she asked, was a test. Lena laughed once. Breathless and bitter. Of course it was. Matteo's gaze sharpened. What does that mean? It means rich people never just lose things. They set traps and call them accidents. The words hit something. She saw it in him. Not guilt. Recognition. Matteo walked to the bar, poured water into a crystal glass, and held it out. Lena did not take it. His eyes dropped to her hands, still shaking despite her effort to hide them. I don't poison maids, he said. You frame them. No. You kidnap them. His mouth tightened. You walked into my elevator. Because your bride looked like she wanted to throw me overboard. For the first time, silence worked in Lena's favor. Matteo set the water on the table instead of forcing it into her hand. Vivian did not plant that key alone. He said, someone had access to my safe. Someone had access to your apron. Someone wanted me to believe you were part of it. Why me? Because you were convenient. That hurt more than it should have. Not because it was cruel, because it was true. Lena looked out the window so he would not see the sting in her eyes. Convenient. That had been the shape of her whole life. Convenient daughter. Convenient employee. Convenient woman to overlook. Convenient body to mock. Convenient scapegoat. My supervisor will fire me, she said. No. Matteo replied. She looked back. He lifted his phone. Your supervisor now reports to me. You can't just buy the ship. No. He paused. But I can buy enough fear on it. Lena should have been horrified. Part of her was another part. The wounded part, still kneeling in that hallway. Wanted to breathe for the first time that morning. Matteo studied her carefully. You'll stay in this suite until I know who touched you. Lena blinked. Touched me. Your apron. Your card. Your locker. Your life. The possessive edge in his voice slid under her skin before she could stop it. I'm not your property, she said. His eyes darkened. No, he said quietly. Your evidence. It should have made her feel safer. It didn't. By sunset, the whole ship knew Lena Carter's name. Not because Matteo's men failed to erase the hallway videos. They erased them. But gossip on a luxury cruise moved faster than Wi-Fi. By dinner, Whispers followed Lena through the staff corridor. The maid who stole the bride's necklace. The maid found with the groom's key. The maid Matteo Romano took upstairs. That last part became the most poisonous. Women who had never noticed her now stared like she had stolen more than diamonds. Men in suits paused when she passed. Crew members who had smiled at her yesterday suddenly stepped back, as if scandal could stain through uniforms. Matteo kept her inside his suite for 3 hours. Not locked. Not exactly. The door opened if she touched the handle. But there were 2 men outside, and both looked at her like leaving would create paperwork involving blood. A woman named Bianca brought clothes. Not gowns. Not anything absurd. Black trousers. A cream sweater. Flat shoes. A wool coat. All in Lena's size. That almost made her cry. Not the kindness of it. The precision. Someone had looked at her and measured her correctly. Lena hated that this affected her. When Matteo returned, he found her standing by the window in the sweater, arms wrapped around herself, looking at the bruised horizon. The clothes fit, he said. Was that supposed to be impossible? No. You sound surprised. I'm not used to people accepting help without asking what it costs. Lena turned. I haven't accepted anything. I'm wearing these because my uniform has glass dust on it, and your men won't let me go to my cabin. They will, if I say so. Then say so. No. Anger warmed her cheeks. Good. Anger was safer than fear. You don't get to decide where I sleep. Tonight I do. No. Matteo moved closer. There was nothing rushed in him. Nothing uncontrolled. He did not crowd her by accident. He did it with the calm intention of a man who knew exactly how much space his presence consumed. You were framed with my key, he said. Vivian's people believe you know something. My enemies believe I brought you here because you matter to me. Until I understand which lie becomes true first. You stay where my men can keep you alive. Lena's breath caught. Your enemies. His gaze did not move from hers. There are men on this ship who came for a wedding and packed for a funeral. Outside, the first rain struck the window. Lightly at first, then harder. The sea turned black. Lena looked past him toward the door. I have a life, she said. I know. No, you don't. You know my name and my uniform size. I know you send half your paycheck every 2 weeks to a woman named Lena Carter in Tacoma. Lena went cold. Matteo saw it. Something shifted in his face. But he did not apologize. How do you know that? My people checked you. Your people had no right. I don't survive by asking permission. She's my sister. Older. Younger. Lena's voice hardened. She has a son. He needs medication that insurance likes to argue about. That's why I took this contract. That's why I can't be part of your little mafia theater. I need this job. Matteo's jaw tightened. For the first time, she saw something like restraint cost him effort. What's the boy's name? Lena looked away. Don't. I asked his name. And I said don't. She faced him again. You don't get to make my family part of this. Not because you're curious. Not because you're powerful. Not because you looked at me in a hallway like I was a person for 5 seconds. The room went dangerously still. One of his men outside shifted. Matteo heard it. He raised one hand slightly. The movement stopped. Then he stepped back. Not much. Enough. Fair, he said. The word surprised her. So did the softness hidden beneath it. Not warmth. Not yet, but respect. The sweet phone rang. Matteo answered. Listened. And his expression became stone. Bring her, he said. He hung up. Lena's stomach turned. Bring who? Before Matteo could answer, the door opened. His men escorted in a young steward named Ethan, pale and shaking. Lena recognized him from laundry services. He was 19, maybe 20, with nervous hands and kind eyes. A bruise darkened his cheek. Lena stepped forward. What happened to him? Matteo's gaze cut to his men. One answered. Found him in the service stairwell with $5,000 and Miss Carter's spare apron. Lena's blood drained. My apron. Ethan looked at her. Terrified. I'm sorry. The room tilted. Matteo said nothing. That was worse. Lena walked toward Ethan. Who gave it to you? He shook his head. Ethan. I can't. Matteo's voice entered quietly. You can. Ethan started crying. They said if I didn't put the key in your apron, they'd say, I stole from guests. I already have a record. I took a car when I was 17. I didn't hurt anyone. I just needed... Who Matteo asked. Ethan's mouth trembled. Miss Russo's assistant. Camille. Lena closed her eyes. Vivienne had not even dirtied her own hands. Matteo turned toward the window. The muscles in his jaw moved once. Leave us, he said. His men took Ethan out. Lena stood in the middle of the suite. Numb. So you know I didn't do it, she said. I know you didn't plant the key. She looked at him. But you still think I could have stolen the necklace. The necklace is still missing. Lena almost laughed. Of course. Almost human was not human. She turned toward the door. I'm done. Matteo's voice stopped her. Lena. It was the first time he said her name without asking for it. It landed too intimate, too dangerous. She hated that she noticed. If you walk out now, he said, you walk back into a ship full of people who need you guilty. I've been guilty to people like them since the day I was born in the wrong body and the wrong bank account. That isn't the same. No. She looked back at him. Eyes bright but dry. This time there are diamonds involved. He did not smile. Neither did she. For a long moment, neither moved. Then he reached into his jacket and placed a black card on the table. My private line. I don't want it. Take it. No. His eyes hardened. This is not a negotiation. That should have frightened her. Instead, it made something stubborn and reckless rise inside her. She walked back to the table, picked up the card, and snapped it in half. One of his men outside drew a breath. Matteo stared at the broken card in her hand. Lena dropped both pieces onto the marble. If you need me, she said, you can knock. Then she walked out. No one stopped her, not even Matteo. But when she reached the staff deck, she realized she was trembling so hard she could barely open the door to her cabin. Her cabin was the size of a closet, shared with another maid who had been reassigned to night laundry. A narrow bunk, a metal shelf, a tiny mirror, a family photo taped beside the bed. Lena locked the door behind her. For 3 seconds, she stood there in silence. Then she pressed both hands to her mouth and cried without sound. Not because of Vivienne, not because of the necklace, not even because Matteo still suspected her. She cried because for one moment in that hallway, when the whole world looked down at her, he had asked why she was on the floor, and some wounded. Foolish part of her had wanted that to mean something. At 1:13 in the morning, Lena woke to someone inside her cabin. Her eyes opened into darkness. The ship rolled gently beneath her. A shadow moved near her shelf. Lena stopped breathing. Her room was small enough that panic had nowhere to spread. It slammed straight into her chest. The shadow turned. A man. Not Matteo. He wore a service uniform and gloves. Lena grabbed the only thing within reach. the metal water bottle beside her bunk, and swung. The bottle connected with his shoulder. He cursed and lunged. Lena screamed. His hand clamped over her mouth. She bit him. Hard. He jerked back. The cabin door burst open. Matteo came through first. Not his men. Matteo, bareheaded, shirt sleeves rolled up, gun in his hand. His face empty of everything except violence. The intruder tried to move. Matteo hit him once. The man dropped. Lena scrambled backward on the bunk. Chest heaving. 2 Romano men entered and dragged the intruder into the corridor. Matteo did not follow. He looked at Lena. The cabin light flickered on. Harsh and white. She hated how small she felt. Hated that her hands shook. Hated that he saw. Matteo lowered the gun. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Words would not come. His eyes moved over her face, her throat, her arms, searching for damage. The controlled man from the suite was gone. In his place stood something darker, something barely held back. He turned toward the corridor. Alive, he ordered. One of his men nodded. Alive until I ask everything. The door closed. Silence returned. Lena hugged her knees. How did you know? She whispered. Matteo's gaze flicked to the ceiling corner. Lena followed it. There, almost invisible near the smoke detector. A small black lens stared down. Her stomach dropped. You put a camera in my room. No. Then who did? Matteo's expression became colder. That is what I would like to know. The fear in Lena's stomach changed shape. Hidden surveillance. In her room? On a ship. In the dark. Get out, she said. Lena, get out. There may be more cameras. Then get a woman from security. Get my supervisor. Get anyone who isn't you. He went still. She expected anger. Instead, he nodded once, opened the door, and spoke quietly to someone outside. Within minutes, Bianca arrived with tools and a security scanner. She checked the room while Matteo waited in the hall. Back turned. One hand braced against the wall as if leaving Lena alone cost him something. They found 3 cameras, one near the ceiling, one behind the mirror, one inside the vent. Bianca's face hardened with each discovery. Lena sat on the lower bunk. Numb, Matteo re-entered only after Bianca stepped aside. His voice was quiet. This was not for theft. Lena looked at the tiny camera in Bianca's gloved hand. Then, what was it for? Matteo's eyes met hers. To watch when someone came for you. The room felt suddenly airless. So, I was bait. He said nothing. That silence cut deeper than denial. Lena stood. You knew. I suspected they might use you. After you took me to your suite. Yes. And you let me come back here. His face tightened. With guards in the corridor. Guards who didn't notice a man inside my room. Matteo's eyes darkened. One of the men outside looked at the floor. Lena stepped closer to Matteo. She was afraid of him. She would have been stupid not to be. But fear had burned into fury. You looked at me like you were protecting me, she whispered. But you were watching to see who would try to hurt me. Yes. The honesty almost broke her. No apology. No excuse. Just truth. Lena laughed once. Empty and shaking. You're all the same. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger. Pain. Maybe. But buried so deep it barely had language. I am worse than most, he said. Lena's lips parted. Matteo stepped back. You will sleep in my suite. No. That man had a blade. I said no. You can hate me from behind a locked door with 4 guards outside it. I can hate you from here. His control cracked, only slightly, enough that his voice dropped into something lethal. And if the next man reaches you before I do? The question silenced her. Because beneath the dominance, beneath the arrogance, there was something else now. Fear. Not for himself. For hair? Matteo seemed to realize he had revealed too much. His face closed. You have 5 minutes, he said. Then he walked out. Lena wanted to refuse. She wanted pride to be enough. But pride did not stop knives. So 5 minutes later, wrapped in her coat with Bianca beside her, Lena walked back through the sleeping ship toward Matteo Romano's private suite. And from the far end of the corridor, hidden behind a service door, Vivienne Russo watched them go. The storm arrived before dawn. Rain hammered the windows of Matteo's suite. The ocean threw itself against the ship in black. Rolling waves. Somewhere below, music still played faintly from an after-hours lounge. Absurdly cheerful beneath the weather. Lena did not sleep. Matteo gave her the bedroom. She tried to refuse. He ignored her and took the sofa. Not like a gentleman. Like a guard dog. At Patruzero A.M. She opened the bedroom door and found him awake. Sitting in the dark. One arm along the back of the sofa. A glass of untouched whiskey on the table beside him. Lightning revealed his profile. Sharp cheekbones. Dark stubble. A small scar near his mouth. Ink disappearing beneath the open collar of his shirt. He looked less like a groom than a king waiting for betrayal. You don't sleep? Lena asked. No. Because of guilt. Because people with enemies who sleep deeply don't wake up. She leaned against the doorframe. The borrowed sweater fell off one shoulder. Matteo's gaze moved there. Stopped. Then returned to her face with visible discipline. That restraint disturbed her more than staring would have. Who was the man in my cabin? She asked. A contractor. For Vivienne. For someone using Vivienne. Convenient answer. Yes. The honesty again. Lena crossed her arms. Why are you marrying her? You asked that already. You didn't answer like a human being. Matteo looked out at the storm. My brother was killed 6 months ago. The anger in Lena softened before she could stop it. I'm sorry. He accepted the words without moving. His car exploded outside a restaurant in Brooklyn. Everyone called it a rival strike. I found out later, someone in my own circle opened the route. And you think Vivienne's family helped? I know they did. Then why marry into them? Because they're arrogant when they think they've won. Lena started. You set the wedding as a trap. His eyes returned to hers. Yes. And the necklace. A Russo heirloom with a tracking stone and a hollow clasp. I placed a copy in Vivienne's safe. The real necklace was never supposed to leave my possession. Lena frowned. Then what went missing? Matteo's hand tightened around the glass. The copy. So why does it matter? Because inside the copy was a name. The room seemed to darken around that sentence. Lena waited. Matteo did not continue. She should have let it go. She didn't. A name of who? His eyes warned her. Lena held his gaze anyway. Someone you love, she said softly. His face shut down completely. But it was too late. She had seen it. There, the wound behind the empire. Matteo stood. The movement was quiet but final. Go back to bed. You don't get to interrogate my life and hide yours. I do. Because you're dangerous. Because if you know certain things, you become harder to keep alive. Lena's breath caught. Before she could answer, thunder rolled over the sea. The lights flickered. For half a second, darkness swallowed the room. When the lights returned, Matteo stood closer than before. Too close. Close enough that Lena felt the heat of him, close enough that if she lifted her hand, she could touch the ink at his wrist. He looked down at her, and the air between them sharpened. Dangerous attraction did not arrive like romance. It arrived like standing too close to the edge of a roof and realizing part of you wanted to lean forward. Matteo lifted his hand. For one impossible second, Lena thought he would touch her face. Instead, he reached past her and pushed the bedroom door wider. "Inside," he said. Voice rougher than before. Lena swallowed. "Do you always order women around when you don't know what else to do?" His eyes dropped to her mouth. Stayed. Returned to her eyes. "No," he said. "Only the ones who make me forget the room has exits." The words hit both of them. Matteo stepped back first. Lena went into the bedroom and closed the door. This time, she locked it. Not because she thought it would keep him out, because she needed something between them that was not just willpower. Morning came silver and cold. The cruise ship approached the narrow waters leading toward Alaska, where pine-dark islands rose from mist like secrets. The storm had passed, leaving the decks slick, the sky low, and the whole ship buzzing with scandal. The wedding rehearsal would continue. That was Vivian's decision. Or maybe Matteo's. Lena no longer knew where one trap ended and another began. Bianca brought breakfast and a warning. "Do not eat anything not prepared by us." Lena stared at the tray. "Us. Mr. Romano's kitchen team." Of course he has a kitchen team. Bianca almost smiled. Almost. Then her face became serious. "There's another rumor." Lena picked up the coffee, then set it down untouched. "What now?" "They're saying you were Matteo's mistress before the cruise." Lena closed her eyes. Of all the lies, that one burned differently. Theft made her look desperate. That lie made her body the crime. Bianca's voice softened. He stopped 3 guests from repeating it in the casino. "How? You don't want details." Lena looked toward the living room. Matteo stood by the window, speaking in Italian on the phone. His voice was quiet, deadly. He had changed into a black shirt and charcoal jacket. The kind of man who could walk into a ballroom and make wealth feel underdressed. "He doesn't care about me," Lena said. Bianca followed her gaze. "No," she said. "That's why everyone is afraid." Lena looked at her. Bianca said nothing else. At noon, Matteo told Lena she was coming with him to the rehearsal luncheon. "No," she said immediately. He buttoned one cuff. "Yes. I am not walking into a room full of people who think I stole a necklace and slept with the groom. That is why you are walking in with me." Her stomach tightened. "You want to use me again?" "Yes." The answer landed like a slap. At least he did not dress it up. Lena grabbed her coat from the chair. "Find another prop." Matteo crossed the room and stopped in front of her. "I need Vivian angry. I'm sure you can manage that without me. She made a mistake when she framed you. I want her making more. And what happens to me while your bride is making mistakes?" His face hardened. "No one touches you. You keep saying that after people touch me." The words cut. Matteo did not flinch. But something in his expression changed. "I failed last night," he said. Lena went still. The apology was not soft. It was not complete. But for a man like him, it sounded like blood drawn from stone. He continued, "I won't fail again." Lena wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. She looked away. "I don't have anything to wear to your mafia lunch." Matteo opened the bedroom door. Inside, hanging from the wardrobe, was a deep emerald dress. Simple, elegant, long sleeves, Soft fabric, not tight in the places women were punished for having bodies. Not shapeless, either. 1. Lena stared at it. Odd. Her throat tightened. I'm not wearing that. It's yours. No, it isn't. It is now. She turned on him. You don't get to buy me into obedience. I'm not. Then why? Matteo's gaze moved over her face. Because they expect you to walk in looking ashamed. Lena said nothing. His voice lowered. Don't give them what they want. That was how she ended up in the emerald dress. Bianca pinned her dark hair back loosely. Lena looked in the mirror and did not recognize herself at first. Not because the dress made her thinner. It didn't. It made her visible. Her curves looked powerful instead of apologetic. Her face looked pale, but striking. Her eyes looked wary. And that made her look less like a victim than a woman who had survived the first act and was deciding how much damage to do in the second. When she stepped into the living room, Matteo turned. He did not speak. That silence did more than any compliment could have. It moved over her slowly, carefully, almost reverently. Then his face closed, as if the reaction had angered him. Stay beside me, he said. Lena lifted her chin. Try to keep up. For the second time since they met, Matteo Romano almost smiled. The rehearsal luncheon was held in the glass atrium at the center of the ship. White orchids climbed gold pillars. Champagne sparkled in crystal towers. Outside the glass ceiling, cold northern light filtered through clouds, turning everything silver. Guests dressed in couture and diamonds murmured beneath violin music. Then Matteo entered with Lena Carter at his side. Conversation died in waves. First at the entrance, then across the tables. Then near the stage where Vivian stood, surrounded by bridesmaids in pale blue. Vivian turned. Her smile vanished. Lena felt the impact of every stare against her skin. She almost faltered. Matteo's hand touched the small of her back. Not gripping, not pushing. Just there. A quiet command. A warning to the room. A dangerous comfort she hated needing. Vivian walked toward them with the grace of a woman carrying knives behind her teeth. Matteo, she said. What is she doing here? Matteo looked around the atrium, then at Vivian. Standing. A few guests looked down. Vivian's eyes flashed. She is accused of stealing from me. She is accused, Matteo said, not convicted. Vivian gave Lena a smile full of poison. How generous of you to dress her up. Lena felt Matteo's hand go still against her back. Before he could speak, Lena did. I know, she said softly. It's strange seeing a woman in clothes that actually fit her. The atrium froze. Vivian's face sharpened. Matteo's fingers flexed once at Lena's back. Not in warning. In approval, Vivian leaned closer. You think this makes you special? No, Lena said. I think it makes you nervous. The words were quiet. Only the nearest guests heard. But Vivian heard. And Matteo watched her hear. A waiter passed with champagne. Vivian took a glass. Her hand tight around the stem. You're making a mistake. She whispered to Matteo. No, he said. I'm watching one. The luncheon began like a funeral pretending to be a party. Lena sat at Matteo's right because he told a senator to move. The senator moved. Vivian sat across from them, smiling too brightly. To Lena's left sat a man with silver hair and a priest's collar who did not look like any priest she had ever seen. Beside him, a scarred man named Rocco watched the room like a loaded weapon. Matteo barely ate. Neither did Lena. Halfway through the second course, a small envelope appeared beside Lena's plate. No one saw who placed it there. Her name was written across the front in black ink. Lena's fingers went cold. Matteo noticed. What is it? I don't know. Don't open it. That made every rebellious part of her want to open it immediately. But the fear in his voice stopped her. Not command. Fear. Matteo took the envelope with a napkin and handed it to Rocco. Rocco sliced it open carefully. Inside was a photograph. He looked at it once, then looked at Matteo. Matteo took the photo. His face changed. Lena knew before she saw it. This was the name in the necklace. The person he loved. Matteo tried to fold the photo away, but Lena had already seen enough. A little girl, maybe 6, dark hair, serious eyes, sitting on a swing somewhere green and bright, holding a stuffed rabbit. On the back, written in the same black ink, "Weddings are dangerous for children." Matteo stood so fast his chair hit the floor. Every guest turned. Vivienne looked startled, but not surprised. Lena saw that too. Matteo leaned down to Lena's ear. "Do not move." Then he walked out with Rocco and 3 men behind him. The atrium erupted in whispers. Vivienne's gaze found Lena across the table. For once, the bride did not look cruel. She looked victorious. Lena's stomach turned. The little girl was real. And someone on this ship knew. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. Matteo did not return. The violin music resumed. Quieter now. Like even the musicians were afraid. Lena stared at the folded napkin beside Matteo's empty plate. A corner of the photo stuck out. She should not touch it. She touched it, not to pray. To understand why a man like Matteo Romano had looked, for 1 second, like the floor had vanished beneath him. When she lifted the napkin, a tiny object fell into her lap. A necklace clasp. Not diamond, not gold. A hollow clasp. Broken open. Inside was a strip of microfilm, so small she almost missed it. Lena closed her hand around it. Across the table, Vivienne stood. Her eyes were locked on Lena's fist. Now Lena understood. The luncheon had been another trap. But this time, someone had placed the missing piece beside Matteo's plate, and they wanted Lena holding it. Vivienne started toward her. Lena stood. The room shifted. "Going somewhere?" Vivienne asked. Lena smiled with more courage than she felt. "Powder room." Vivienne's bridesmaids moved subtly, blocking the easiest exit. Lena turned toward the service doors instead. 2 men stepped into her path. Not ship staff. Russo, men. Her pulse slammed. Then a voice spoke from behind her. "Move." Matteo. He stood at the atrium entrance. Rain on his coat, though they were indoors. His face carved from something colder than anger. The Russo men moved. Not fast enough. Matteo crossed the room and took Lena's wrist. Not hard, but with absolute possession. "What did you touch?" Lena opened her palm. The broken clasp lay there. Matteo's expression went lethal. Vivienne said, "She stole that too." Lena almost laughed. The lie was so quick, it was almost impressive. Matteo did not look away from Lena. "Did you?" "No." "Where did you find it?" "Under your napkin." His thumb rested against her pulse. He could feel her heart racing. Vivienne laughed sharply. "Matteo, are you insane? How many times does this woman have to be found with my stolen property before you stop staring at her like she's innocent?" Matteo turned his head slowly. The atrium chilled. "Because guilty people run from me," he said. "She keeps looking me in the eye." No one spoke. Then the ship lights flickered. Once. Twice. A deep alarm sounded somewhere below deck. Not the emergency alarm. Something lower. Mechanical. Rocco appeared at the entrance. Faccia grim. Engine room disturbance, he said. And we lost 2 cameras on deck 4. Matteo's grip tightened on Lena's wrist. Vivienne looked at the glass ceiling. Outside, a helicopter appeared through the clouds. No cruise ship helicopter. Black, unmarked, flying too low. The atrium erupted. Guests screamed as the helicopter roared over the glass, close enough to shake the chandeliers. Matteo pulled Lena behind him. The first shot cracked the glass above. Not enough to shatter it, enough to send panic through the room. Lena stumbled. Matteo caught her before she fell, his arm wrapping around her waist as he pushed her behind a marble pillar. Stay down. This time, she did not argue. Men moved, not like guests, like soldiers. Matteo's men drew weapons. Russo men drew theirs. Ship security vanished into chaos. Champagne towers crashed. Women screamed. The violinist ducked behind the stage. Another shot shattered a side window. Cold wind and rain whipped into the atrium. Lena pressed herself against the marble, heart pounding so hard she could barely hear. Matteo stood in front of her, not crouched, not hiding, a black silhouette against white orchids and broken glass. He looked terrifying, and he was protecting her. A man rushed from the crowd toward Lena with a blade hidden under his sleeve. She saw the flash too late. Matteo moved. His hand caught the man's wrist. There was a violent, sharp struggle, a crack, and the man went down without a scream. Lena started. Matteo turned back to her. For the first time, there was blood on his knuckles. Not much. Enough. His eyes searched her face. Are you hit? She shook her head. The helicopter veered away as fast as it had come. The room smelled like rain, champagne, and fear. Then Vivienne screamed. Not from injury, from rage. Everyone turned. Her white dress rehearsal robe was stained with spilled champagne. Her perfect hair had come loose. She pointed at Lena again. But this time her hand shook. This is because of her, Vivienne cried. Everything was fine until she touched my sweet. Matteo walked toward her. Slowly, every step made people move back. Vivienne tried to hold her ground. Failed. Matteo stopped inches from her. You knew about the child. The words were quiet, but they destroyed the room. Vivienne's face went blank. Lena's chest tightened. The child. The little girl in the photograph. The hidden name. Vivienne looked around, realizing too many people had heard. What child? She whispered. Matteo leaned closer. The one you threatened. Vivienne's lips parted. Then she smiled. It was small, ugly, the first honest expression Lena had seen on her. You should have married me when I was still willing to forgive secrets. Matteo's hand moved. Rocco stepped forward quickly. Not to protect Vivienne from Matteo, but to protect Matteo from what he might do in front of 300 witnesses. Lena moved before she thought. She touched Matteo's arm. Just 2 fingers against his sleeve. His entire body stopped. He did not look at her at first. When he did, the violence in his eyes was still there, but now it had somewhere to go. Not away, contained. For here, not here, Lena whispered. He stared at her. Then he stepped back. Vivienne saw the exchange. Her face twisted, and Lena understood the most dangerous truth on that ship. Vivienne did not hate her because she was a maid. Vivienne hated her because Matteo listened. That night, the wedding was postponed. Officially. Because of weather complications and a security incident. Unofficially. Because every powerful person on the ship now knew the wedding had become a war. Matteo moved Lena to cabin 7. It took 2 private elevators, a locked service passage, a stairwell behind a false wall. and a steel door disguised as maintenance access to reach it. The cabin was hidden beneath the forward observation deck, built into the bones of the ship. It had no luxury. No chandeliers, no marble, just reinforced walls, monitors, maps, communication equipment, and one narrow bed bolted to the floor. And on a small shelf near the bed sat a child's drawing. A house, a son, a black-haired man holding hands with a little girl. Lena looked at it before she could stop herself. Matteo saw. "Don't ask." "I won't." But her voice was too soft. He turned away, bracing both hands on the metal table. The monitors showed different parts of the ship corridors, engine access, the atrium, the bridal suite, the deck where wind pushed rain sideways, hidden surveillance. His surveillance this time. Lena sat on the edge of the bed. The emerald dress felt absurd in this room. "Is she your daughter?" she asked. Matteo closed his eyes. "I told you not to ask." "You told me not to. I didn't promise." He turned. Anger flashed. But there was exhaustion beneath it. "Yes." The word changed the air. Lena looked back at the drawing. "What's her name?" "No." "Matteo." His name in her mouth did something to him. She saw it. The hard swallow. The way his gaze dropped. Then rose. "The world thinks she died with her mother," he said. Lena went still. "That's why the name matters." He nodded once. "My wife was killed 3 years ago. A car bomb meant for me. My daughter survived because she had a fever and stayed home with a nanny. I let everyone believe she died too." Lena's heart ached. "That's horrible." "It kept her alive." And Vivienne found out. Someone told her enough to make threats. Lena stood slowly. "I'm sorry." Matteo's jaw tightened. "Don't pity me." "I wasn't." "Then what was that?" "Grief. Recognizing grief." He looked at her then. Really looked. Lena wished she had not said it. But the ship was dark. The ocean was violent. And secrets had begun stripping both of them down to bone. "My mother died when I was 19, Lena said quietly. "My father disappeared before the funeral. My sister was 16 and pregnant by a boy who left the state. I learned very early that love doesn't save people. People save people. Badly. Imperfectly. Sometimes too late." Matteo said nothing, but his face changed. Not softened. Opened. Just enough for her to see loneliness on the other side. He stepped closer. "You raised the boy." "Helped." "Lena." She looked away. "Yes." "How old?" 7. "Name?" She breathed out. "Noah." Matteo nodded, as if storing the name somewhere sacred. "Does he know where you are?" "He thinks I'm on a giant boat cleaning up after princesses." Matteo's mouth moved slightly. This time, it was almost a real smile. Lena's chest warmed despite herself. Then the monitor above them flickered. A video feed came alive. The bridal suite. Vivienne stood inside with a man Lena had not seen before. Tall. Blonde. Elegant. With a face too smooth to trust. Matteo moved to the console. "Silas Vale," he said. "Who is he?" "The man who killed my brother." Lena's skin went cold. On the monitor, Vivienne paced. Audio crackled through the speakers. "You were supposed to retrieve the class before the maid touched it." Vivienne snapped. Silas smiled. "Your jealousy made her important. That was your mistake." "She isn't important." Silas stepped closer. "Then why did Matteo stop the entire atrium when she touched his sleeve?" Vivienne slapped him. Silas laughed. Lena looked at Matteo. His expression was deadly calm. On screen, Silas lifted a small velvet pouch. Vivian opened it. Inside lay the diamond necklace. The missing copy. Lena exhaled sharply. There it is. Matteo leaned closer to the screen. Silas said, "At tomorrow's ceremony, you wear it. When Romano takes your hand, the clasp transmits the location of the child to our men." Vivian's face tightened. "And after, you become Widow Romano." Lena's blood turned to ice. Matteo did not move, but the room seemed to contract around him. Silas continued, "The maid dies first. Publicly, if possible. Matteo's weakness needs a face." Vivian smiled. A sick, beautiful smile. "Then give them hers." The screen went black. For a moment, only the ocean spoke. Lena could not breathe. Tomorrow's ceremony, a murder plan. A child's location. Her death. She looked at Matteo. His face was unreadable, but his hand rested on the table near the child's drawing. Fingers curled so tightly, the knuckles had gone pale. "They want you emotional," Lena said. His eyes lifted. "They want you careless." "Yes." "Then don't be." Tan. A faint, humorless laugh left him. "You think it is that simple." "No." She stepped closer. "I think you're a man who built a hidden cabin inside a cruise ship and planted fake diamonds in your bride's safe. You're not stupid. You're angry." He stared at her. "You speak to me like you don't understand what I am." "I understand exactly what you are." "Do you?" "Yes." Her voice lowered. "You're dangerous. You're violent. You're probably guilty of things I don't want names for. But right now, you're also a father whose daughter is being hunted. So either become the monster they fear or become the man she needs. But don't become their trap." The silence that followed felt like standing inside lightning. Matteo moved toward her. Slowly. Lena's breath caught. He stopped inches away. His hand rose. This time, he did touch her. 2 fingers beneath her chin. Gentle enough to make her more afraid than force would have. "You should not make me want things," he said. Her pulse stumbled. "What things?" His eyes moved over her face with restrained hunger. "Grief. Fury. And something far more dangerous. A life that does not belong to men like me." The words entered her chest and stayed there. Lena should have stepped back. She didn't. For one impossible second. The ocean. The war. The bride. The child. The necklace. All of it fell away. There was only his hand beneath her chin. His body close enough to warm hers. His eyes lowered to her mouth. Then an alarm flashed red across the console. Matteo stepped back instantly. The moment broke. Rocco's voice crackled through the radio. "Russo men are moving to the lower deck. They found the access route." Matteo turned to Lena. "Stay behind me." This time, she picked up a heavy metal flashlight from the table. "No." His eyes narrowed. "I don't hide well." Despite everything, something like pride crossed his face. Then the first explosion shook the hidden corridor. Not large enough to sink the ship, large enough to announce war. Smoke rolled under the door. Matteo grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her into the passage. The corridor beyond cabin 7 was narrow and dim, lit by red emergency lights. The ship groaned around them. Somewhere above, alarms began to wail. Rocco appeared from the stairwell with 2 men. "They cut power to deck 12, he said. "Wedding guests are being moved to the theater. Russo men are trying to reach the bridge. And Silas. Missing." Matteo looked at Lena. "He'll come for you." "Because I saw the video, Because I did. Um, the meaning hit her. Because Matteo wanted her. Because he had stopped for her. Because on a ship full of power, she had become the visible crack in his armor. Lena's grip tightened around the flashlight. Then use me. Matteo's face went black. No. You used me before. That was before. Before what? His eyes burned into hers. Before I cared. He did not say it. He did not need to. Rocco looked away. Matteo stepped closer. Voice low and furious. You do not offer yourself as bait to me. I'm not offering. I'm deciding. You don't know these men. I know cruel people. I know what they do when they think someone beneath them won't fight back. Her voice shook now. But it did not break. Vivienne needs me scared. Silas needs you distracted. So let them think both things are true. Matteo stared at her like he wanted to lock her in steel and burn the world outside it. Lena. She touched his wrist, the same way she had in the atrium. Save your daughter. That did it. The anger did not disappear. It focused. Matteo turned to Rocco. Prepare the chapel. Rocco nodded. The wedding. Matteo's voice was cold enough to freeze the sea. Let the bride have her stage. By late afternoon, the ship had become a floating kingdom under siege. Passengers were told the ceremony would proceed in a reduced private setting to restore calm. No one believed it, but powerful people love spectacle more than safety. And fear, when dressed in wealth, often looked like loyalty. The chapel sat near the forward deck, with tall windows looking out toward the gray Alaskan coast. White candles lined the aisle. Orchids hung from the ceiling. Gold chairs faced a small altar framed by stormy ocean. Lena watched from a side corridor as guests entered under the eyes of Romano men and Russo men, pretending they were not measuring distances for gunfire. She wore the emerald dress again. Matteo insisted on a bullet-resistant lining beneath it. She did not ask how he had arranged that. She did not want to know. Her role was simple. Walk in late. Draw Vivienne's eyes. Make Silas move. Survive. Matteo stood near the altar in a black suit. Expression, empty. Hands folded in front of him. He looked like a groom carved for a funeral. Vivienne appeared at the chapel doors in a wedding gown that seemed made from light and vanity. The diamond necklace glittered at her throat. The copy. The transmitter. The death sentence. Music began. Lena's heart pounded so hard she felt sick. Bianca stood beside her in the corridor. You don't have to do this, Bianca whispered. Lena looked through the cracked door at Matteo. At the way, he did not search the room for threats first. He searched for her. Yes, Lena said. I do. The ceremony began. The officiant's voice trembled. Vivienne smiled as she took Matteo's hands. She looked beautiful enough to fool a careless man. Matteo was not careless. Not anymore. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, silence filled the chapel. That was Lena's cue. She opened the side door. Every head turned. The aisle stretched before her, white and gold, lined with people who had laughed at her on the floor less than 2 days ago. Lena walked slowly, not to the altar, to the front row. Vivienne's face tightened. Matteo's eyes locked on Lena and did not move. A murmur spread through the chapel. The maid, the mistress, the thief, the mistake. Lena lifted her chin. Vivienne laughed softly, still desperate for attention. Lena looked at the necklace, then at Vivienne. No, she said, just returning something that never belonged to you. Before anyone could move, the chapel screens flashed on. Every decorative screen meant for wedding photos suddenly filled with video. Vivienne in the bridal suite, Silas beside her. The velvet pouch, the necklace, Their voices filled the chapel. The maid dies first. Publicly, if possible. Matteo's weakness needs a face. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed. Vivienne reached for the necklace clasp. Matteo moved faster. He caught her wrist. But from the balcony above, Silas appeared with a gun. Let her go. Romano. The chapel froze. Silas aimed not at Matteo. At Lena, Matteo's face changed. Everyone saw it. The exact moment the most feared man on the ship became afraid. Not for his empire. For her, Silas smiled. There it is. Lena could not move. Matteo released Vivienne slowly. Silas walked down the balcony stairs. Gun steady. Your brother begged too. You know, Silas said. Not for himself. For the men in the car behind him. Family loyalty is such an expensive disease. Matteo's voice was calm. You want me? Take me. No. Silas's smile widened. I want you alive long enough to watch what wanting her costs. Vivienne backed toward the side door. Hand at her throat. Lena saw her fingers close around the necklace clasp. The transmitter. Vivienne was still trying to send the location. Lena moved. Not away from danger, toward Vivienne. Silas shouted. Matteo lunged. The gun fired. The sound shattered the chapel. Matteo hit Lena from the side, driving her behind the altar as wood splintered above them. Pain shot through her shoulder as she hit the floor, but it was not a bullet. Matteo covered her body with his. His weight knocked the breath from her lungs. His hand cradled the back of her head against the marble. Stay down, he growled. For one wild second. All she could see was his face inches from hers. Rage and terror stripped bare. Then another shot rang out. Rocco's men returned fire. Guests screamed and crawled beneath chairs. Candles toppled. White orchids scattered across the aisle like fallen snow. Vivienne. Run. Lena saw her through the chaos. Necklace still flashing at her throat. The clasp, Lena shouted. Matteo looked toward Vivienne. Understanding hit. He rose, pulling Lena with him. Silas fired again. Matteo shoved Lena behind a pillar and moved into the open like death wearing a suit. Rocco tackled Silas at the base of the stairs. The gun skidded across the floor. Vivienne reached the chapel door. Lena was closer. She did not think. She ran. Vivienne turned and grabbed Lena's hair. Pain tore across Lena's scalp. You stupid little maid. Vivienne hissed. Do you know what you ruined? Lena grabbed the necklace and yanked. The clasp snapped. Diamonds scattered across the chapel floor. Vivienne screamed like Lena had cut her throat. The tiny transmitter fell into Lena's palm. Vivienne slapped her hard enough to blur her vision. Lena staggered. Then Matteo was there. He caught Vivienne by the wrist before she could strike again. The chapel went still around them. His face was terrifying. Vivienne's confidence broke. Matteo. She whispered. I was afraid. Silas forced. No. One word. No volume. No mercy. Vivienne began to cry. This time. Badly. Honestly. I loved you. Matteo looked at her as if she had spoken in a dead language. You loved owning what other women wanted. His gaze shifted to Lena, bruised, breathing hard, hair loose. One hand closed around the transmitter. Standing. Always standing. Then he looked back at Vivienne. You should have never put her on the floor. Rocco took Vivienne away. Silas followed in restraints. Bloodless but broken. His arrogance gone beneath the weight of Romano guns. The chapel emptied slowly. Guests were escorted out. The storm faded beyond the windows, leaving the sea gray and exhausted. Lena stood among broken diamonds and fallen orchids. Her hands began to shake again. The adrenaline left all at once. Matteo stepped toward her. This time, he did not order. He stopped before touching her. Lena. She looked at him. The controlled mask was gone. Not completely, but enough. You were hit, he asked. No. He reached for her cheek, where Vivian's slap had left a red mark, then stopped. His hand hovered. The restraint broke something inside her. You can touch me, she whispered. Matteo's breath changed. His fingers brushed her cheek with unbearable care. A man who could break bones without blinking touched her like she was the one dangerous thing in the room. I saw the gun turn toward you, he said. His voice was rough. I know. No. His thumb rested lightly near the bruise. You don't. Lena swallowed. What happened? His eyes held hers. I forgot how to breathe. The chapel seemed to disappear. For once, there was no audience, no bride, no var, no stolen necklace. Only the confession neither of them had meant to reach. Lena closed her eyes briefly. I'm still angry at you, she said. I know. You used me. Yes. You scared me. Yes. You watched me like evidence before you saw me as a person. Matteo's face tightened. Yes. She opened her eyes. But you saw me on the floor. His jaw moved. I did. And you didn't look away. No. That was the beginning. Not forgiveness. Not love. But something real enough to stand on. The ship docked in Juneau under a pale morning sky. Police came. So did federal agents. So did men in dark coats who did not identify themselves but treated Matteo like a problem too large to arrest without preparation. Vivian Russo was taken off the ship in sunglasses and silence. Silas Vale left in handcuffs, flanked by men who looked less like law enforcement and more like a compromise. The official story would mention attempted extortion, international theft, and a private security incident. It would not mention the child. It would not mention Cabin 7. It would not mention the moment Matteo Romano almost started a war in a wedding chapel because a maid's life had become more important than strategy. Lena gave her statement in a small room at the Port Authority building. Matteo waited outside. For once, he did not enter. For once, he let her speak without standing over the truth. When she came out, he was by the window, watching snow begin to fall over the harbor. Black coat, bruised knuckles, eyes shadowed from too little sleep and too much grief. Lena stopped beside him. You're leaving, she asked. Yes. The word hurt more than she expected. Where? Somewhere my daughter can keep being dead. Lena nodded. Of course. That was the world he lived in. People loved from behind locked doors. Children survived by becoming ghosts. Men like Matteo did not get endings. They got temporary truces. He looked at her. I arranged for your job to remain open. Your supervisor will issue an apology. Lena gave him a tired look. Did you threaten him? Yes. At least you're consistent. A faint smile touched his mouth, then faded. There's also an account for Noah's medication. Lena stiffened. Matteo. Before you refuse. It is not charity. It sounds exactly like charity. It is repayment. For what? For saving my daughter's life. Lena looked away, eyes burning. I didn't save her. I never even met her. You protected the secret that keeps her alive. Snow drifted between the harbor lights. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. I can't be bought. I know. I mean it. So, do. I. She looked back at him. His voice lowered. The money is there whether you forgive me or not. whether you ever see me again or not. That did it. Her chest tightened painfully. Don't do that. What? Act like disappearing is noble. His eyes darkened. It is necessary. No. It's what men like you call fear when you don't want to admit you're afraid. The old danger flashed in his face. But she was not afraid of it now. Not the same way. Matteo stepped closer. You think I'm afraid to stay? I think you're terrified. Of what? Wanting someone who can leave. Silence. The harbor moved outside in shades of white and steel. Matteo looked at her like she had found a locked room inside him and opened it with bare hands. I am not a safe man, he said. I know. My world will take from you. It already tried. I have enemies. I met some. I will make mistakes. You already did. His mouth tightened. Lena stepped closer. But don't stand there pretending the only way to protect me is to decide my life for me. Matteo's eyes searched hers. Slowly, he lifted his hand. This time he did not stop himself. He touched her hair, smoothing back a strand loosened from the chaos. His fingers lingering, as if memorizing the rite. I don't know how to want you without wanting to hide you from everything, he said. Lena's voice softened. Then learn. The words hung between them. An impossible offer. A dangerous one. A beginning that understood exactly what kind of darkness it faced. Behind them, a small voice spoke from Matteo's phone. Papa. Matteo froze. Lena stepped back instinctively. On the screen, a little girl with dark hair and serious eyes looked out from a warmly lit room somewhere far away. The same child from the photograph. The same child from the drawing. Matteo's entire face changed. Not soft. Not exactly. But human in a way that hurt to witness. Piccola, he said quietly, you should be asleep. I had a bad dream. His eyes flicked to Lena, then back to the screen. You're safe. Are you coming home? A pause. The kind that carried an entire life. Yes, he said. Soon. The girl looked past the screen. Who is she? Matteo did not answer immediately. Lena held her breath. His gaze moved to her. Something final settled there. Not possession. Choice. This is Lena, he said. She helped me find my way back. Lena's eyes filled before she could stop them. The little girl studied her with solemn curiosity. Are you a princess? Lena laughed softly through the ache in her throat. No. Sweetheart, I clean up after them. The girl smiled. Matteo watched Lena's face while she smiled back at his daughter. And in that quiet Port Authority hallway, with snow falling over Alaska and a broken mafia wedding sinking into legend behind them, Matteo Romano realized the most dangerous truth of all. He had built his life to survive betrayal. He had trained himself not to need. He had hidden his child, buried his wife, hunted his brother's killers, and walked into a wedding prepared to sacrifice anything for revenge. But he had not prepared for Lena Carter, a woman who had been forced to her knees and still stood up, a woman who had been used as bait and still chose courage, a woman who looked at the monster in him and demanded the man answer. Weeks later, Lena returned to Tacoma, not to a fairy tale, to real life. Rent, laundry, hospital calls. Noah's homework spread across the kitchen table, her sister crying when the medication bill was paid in full. The cruise company offered her a promotion with a written apology and a settlement so generous it made her suspicious. Lena accepted the settlement, declined the promotion, and told them never to call her again. For the first time in years, she slept without setting 3 alarms. But every night, at exactly 9:17, a black car parked across the street, not hiding, not approaching, just there. At first, Lena was furious. She walked outside on the third night in slippers and a coat, marched up to the car, and knocked on the tinted window. It rolled down. Matteo sat inside, looking exhausted and devastating in a black overcoat. Lena crossed her arms. "Are you stalking me?" "No." "You're sitting outside my apartment in the rain." "Yes." "That's stalking. That is guarding. That is a different word for the same creepy behavior." His mouth twitched. "I wanted to make sure no one followed you. For 3 nights. I'm thorough. Matteo." The sound of his name softened the rain. He looked past her toward the apartment window where Noah's dinosaur lamp glowed blue. "I leave tomorrow," he said. Her anger faltered. "Oh. My daughter is being moved. New documents. New country for a while." Lena nodded. Because what else could she do? He reached across the seat and took something from the passenger side. A small envelope. "I came to say goodbye properly." She took it carefully. Inside was not money, not diamonds, not a key. It was a photograph. Matteo's daughter in the same green place, holding a sign in childish handwriting. "Thank you, Lena." Lena pressed one hand to her mouth. Matteo watched her, silent. "She wanted you to have it," he said. Lena looked at him through the rain. "And what did you want?" His eyes held hers for a long moment. The selfish answer, "Yes. I wanted to ask you to come." Her heart stopped. "With you?" "Yes." "To another country?" "Yes." "You're insane." "Yes." The honesty broke a laugh out of her. A real one. Then she shook her head, tears mixing with rain. "I can't." "I know. I have Noah, Marisol, a life. I know. You don't get to sweep me into your world because you finally decided you want me in it." "I know." She stared at him. "You keep saying that." "Because I am trying to learn the difference between loving someone and taking them." The rain fell harder. Lena's chest ached. The old Matteo would have commanded. This one waited. Not weak, never weak, but willing to be refused. That moved her more than any diamond could have. She stepped closer to the car. "I don't want your empire." "I know. I don't want guards outside my door forever." His eyes shifted guiltily. "Fewer guards." "Matteo, I will negotiate." She almost smiled, then grew serious. "If this becomes anything, it becomes something I choose, every day. Not something you decide because you're afraid." He nodded. "And you?" he asked. "What about me? What are you afraid of?" The question slipped under her defenses. Lena looked down at the wet pavement. "That one day, I'll believe I matter to you," she said quietly. "And then your world will remind me I was convenient after all." Matteo opened the car door and stepped out into the rain. He did not touch her. He stood in front of her, letting the rain soak his coat. His hair, the collar of his expensive shirt. "Lena Carter," he said, voice low and steady. "You were never convenient." Her eyes burned. "You were the moment everything inconvenient became worth surviving." That was too much. Too beautiful. And too dangerous. She stepped back before she stepped into him. "Go take care of your daughter," she whispered. His face tightened. Then he nodded. He returned to the car. Before the window rose, he looked at her one last time. "I'll come back when it's safe." Lena held the photograph against her chest. "That might be never." His gaze was dark, certain, and full of the kind of devotion that frightened kingdoms. "Then I'll spend never making it safe." The car pulled away. Lena stood in the rain until its taillights disappeared. 6 months passed. No scandal touched her. No enemies came. No hidden cameras appeared in smoke detectors. No brides screamed her name in luxury hallways. Life became quiet. Not easy. Quiet. Lena found work managing housekeeping for a small boutique hotel near the waterfront, owned by a retired widow who cared more about clean rooms than body size. Noah's medication stabilized. Marisol started nursing classes. The settlement money stayed mostly untouched in an account Lena labeled Freedom because she refused to label it Miracle. Sometimes a package arrived. Never jewels. Never anything flashy. Books for Noah. A handmade wooden music box for Marisol. A thick winter coat for Lena in exactly her size. No note. Just a black serpent and crown stamped faintly inside the box. Lena always told herself she would return the next one. She never did. Then, on a snowy evening in December, she was closing the hotel lobby when the front bell rang. Lena looked up. Matteo Romano stood at the door. Snow dusted his shoulders. A small girl stood beside him. Holding his hand, Lena's breath disappeared. The girl was real. Not a photo. Not a secret. Real. Dark hair tucked beneath a red hat. Serious eyes. A stuffed rabbit under one arm. Matteo did not step inside immediately. He waited at the threshold. For permission. That nearly undid her. Lena walked slowly across the lobby. The world seemed to narrow to the space between them. "You're back," she said. Matteo's eyes held hers. "Yes." "Is it safe?" "No." She laughed softly. Because of course, that was his answer. His mouth curved faintly. "But it is safer." The little girl looked up at Lena. "I'm Elena." Lena crouched to her level. "Hi, Elena. My papa said you're brave." Lena glanced up at Matteo. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were not. "What else did he say?" Lena asked. Elena thought seriously. "That you yell at him when he's bossy." Lena smiled. "That sounds like me." Elena nodded, satisfied. Then she held out the stuffed rabbit. "You can hold him if you want. He doesn't like scary people. But he likes you." Lena's throat tightened. She took the rabbit carefully. Matteo watched the exchange like a starving man watching light through a window. Lena stood for a moment. None of them spoke. Snow fell beyond the glass doors. The lobby glowed warm with lamplight. Somewhere upstairs, a guest laughed softly. The world did not end. No guns appeared. No alarm sounded. Just a man, a woman, a child who should have been a ghost, and a chance so fragile it felt holy. Matteo reached into his coat and removed a gold key. Lena's body reacted before her mind could. Not fear, memory, the hallway, the floor, the accusation, the beginning. But this key was different. Simple. New. No serpent. No crown. He placed it on the front desk between them. "What does this open?" Lena asked. "A house." Her heart stuttered. "Yours." "No." He paused. "Maybe ours one day. If you choose it." Lena stared at the key. He continued. Carefully, as if every word had to be earned. "It is in Maine. Near the water. Quiet. Legal. No hidden rooms." Lena arched one eyebrow. "One panic room," he admitted. Despite herself, she laughed. Elena tugged at Matteo's hand. "Papa said Miss Lena gets to say no." Lena looked at him. Matteo nodded once. "She does." The key sat between them. Not a command. Not a trap. Not evidence. An invitation. Lena picked it up. Matteo stopped breathing. She saw it, and, for once, the power was hers. She walked around the desk, stepped close to him, and placed the key back in his palm. His face closed for one painful second. Then she folded his fingers around it and kept her hand over his. "I'm not moving into your house," she said. He nodded slowly. "I understand. But you can take me to see it." His eyes lifted. The guarded hope in them was almost unbearable. And after that, he asked. Lena looked at Elena, then back at him. After that, we learn. Matteo's hand turned beneath hers, his fingers closing gently around her own. Outside, snow covered the city in silence. Inside, Elena wandered toward the lobby Christmas tree, showing the stuffed rabbit the ornaments. Matteo leaned closer, his forehead almost touching Lena's. Still restrained, still dangerous, still a man made of shadows trying, clumsily and fiercely, to stand in the light without owning it. "I love you," he said. The words were low, simple, terrifying. Lena closed her eyes. She could still feel the carpet beneath her knees, could still hear the laughter, could still see him stepping from the elevator, asking why she was on the floor. That was where the old story ended. This was where the new one began. She opened her eyes. "I know," she whispered. His mouth softened with pain and relief. Then she added, "And I'm still going to make you work for it." For the first time, Matteo Romano smiled fully, not like a mafia boss, not like a groom in a trap, like a man who had survived the sea and found shore. He lifted her hand to his mouth and kissed her knuckles with a reverence so quiet it felt more intimate than any vow. "I would expect nothing less," he said. Behind them, Elena gasped at a golden ornament shaped like a ship. Lena looked over Matteo's shoulder and saw the child smiling. Not hiding, not dead to the world, alive, safe enough for tonight. And tonight, for people like them, was everything. The snow kept falling. The harbor lights glowed beyond the windows. And somewhere far away, the luxury cruise ship that had tried to destroy Lena Carter sailed on without her, carrying its polished lies into colder water. But Lena no longer belonged to hallways where cruel women laughed and powerful men looked away. She belonged to herself. And beside her stood a dangerous man who had finally learned that love was not possession. It was protection without chains, power without control, devotion without a cage. Matteo Romano had once found his private cabin key hidden in her apron and believed it was the beginning of betrayal. He was wrong. It was the beginning of the only truth he had not seen coming. The maid they tried to frame became the woman he could not live without. And the man everyone feared became the one person who would spend the rest of his life making sure she never had to kneel for anyone again.